Is this thing on? It's another day, so it's yet another report from Jeff Sneider on yet another Superman test screening. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on X Twitter, so make sure that you do, at Movies TV Mad X. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads, so make sure that you do, at Movies TV Mad X. And you can follow me on TikTok, Mad Mickey's World, and on Snapchat, BMouth60, or Mick, your host with the most. A very warm welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DCU Daily. I think it's becoming apparent that we can't trust scooper Jeff Sneider. He came out with something. He leaked something on his podcast, and there's a big difference now. Jeff Sneider used to work for a respectable platform. Now he works for himself on a podcast. So when you're working on these podcasts, when you're doing things like I'm doing, you know, people want attention. People want you to say anything to get, to get eyes on their platform. That's not how I do it. You know that, right? I don't care that only 50 people watch my videos, right? I'm here for myself, for my ego, and I'm here for whoever wants to watch the videos. But that's what Jeff Sneider does now. He has got great sources. Like all scoopers, sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. That's okay. There's nothing wrong. You take your bets, you take your chances. There's nothing wrong with that. But because James Gunn, hurt his fragile ego and fragile sensibilities by, in a roundabout way, calling him a liar on something that he reported, he started being very, very negative towards James Gunn and leaking negative information which may be true or false. I don't believe a word these people say, but it's my responsibility to you guys, you DCU fans and you movie and TV fans, whatever, to give you these reports, and you can do with that whatever you want yourselves. You're big boys, you're big girls, you don't need me to tell you what to think. And so now, to balance things out, now he's calmed down, now his anger is calmed down about James Gunn insinuating that he's a liar. He's tried to balance it out with a positive reaction from a Superman test screening. First thing I'll say, there seems to be a lot of Superman test screenings. And one thing we can say is some of them have been positive and some of them have been negative. So there's no real consistency in the reactions to these test screenings. We don't know if any of the information about these test screenings we're getting is actually true. I want you to be absolutely clear about that. But this is what Jeff Sneider had to say about the latest round of Superman test screenings. Meanwhile, I spoke to someone this weekend who has seen Superman, and they really liked it. They said David Cornsworth delivers as the Man of Steel. Of course, that's his job. He should deliver as the Man of Steel. That's what he's been cast to do. I never had any doubt on David Cornsworth's ability as an actor. I've seen him do other things. I've seen highlight reels on YouTube of him. I researched him thoroughly. He's a really good actor, right? He's going to be a great Superman. He's going to be a great Clark Kent. I have no doubt about that. That isn't the issue here. So where are we? And that the jokey moments I mentioned on my podcast, The Hot Mic, were initially viewed out of context, but worked much better within the flow of the edit. Now he's trying to dial back what he said about his previous leaks, about it being too joking. Someone's either had a word on his shell light or he's just trying to balance things out. What you're hearing here is very, very suspicious and concerning and makes Jeff Sneider not a good source of information. So, they compared it to how Gunn balanced the humour and the drama in the Suicide Squad. Oh, really? That's where people complained about the balance of the drama and the comedy. Do you remember this moment from the Suicide Squad, right? So Harley and Bloodsport are kind of comforting each other about the death of Rick Flag, saying, well, he was my friend, and it was all very somber. Then just like that, seconds later, they go into a joke. That's not a good balance of comedy and serious drama. It's bad. Do you remember Dick Donner, the way he used to do it in Superman 78 and 4 Lethal Weapon movies? Imagine that sequence in the caravan in the first Lethal Weapon movie when Martin Riggs is considering taking his own life. Imagine if someone just storms in and cracks a joke and Martin Riggs just throws the gun on the floor and goes, yeah, let's have a beer, buddy, right? Imagine that. But Dick Donner, who made the very first ever theatrical Superman, he knew how to balance jokes and seriousness, right? He got it, right? James Gunn is no Dick Donner, and if you're comparing this film to the way he balances out comedy and drama in the Suicide Squad, that's thoroughly concerning. What's even more concerning, Jeff, are the constant comparisons of Gunn's previous works, Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad. A Superman film shouldn't, reflect either of those movies. Anyway, saying it has genuinely funny moments, but you know what? Gunn's humour is hit and miss anyway. But he also knows when to drop the shtick and get serious. The current runtime is roughly 140 minutes, so that's 2 hours and 21 minutes. But I've read another report from Screen Rant claiming now that the runtime has been whittled down to 2 hours, 2 minutes. Now, I predicted this on X Twitter for the past 2 days, that we may be getting a Justice League, a movie that's been messed around with so many times, like Gunn did with James Wan's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, right? Terrible movie because of the way it was edited. The key to a movie is the editing. And if you edit all the best bits out of it and you put the wrong things together and you're trying to make it more humorous than serious, which, that movie has got Gunn written all over it, and it drove, superior director James Wan out of the Warner Brothers studio. Just like, WB, formerly drove and angered Christopher Nolan out of the studio. They're not very good at keeping good creatives, right? Anyway, so I've heard it's even shorter now, this movie, but I think there's probably different run times kind of being tested to see which one tests better. So I don't think we have a final runtime right now. So we can take this report of a test screening of one person liking this movie, if it's even true. We can take as nothing the other negative reports of test screenings from people, from test audiences, right? You can take it as nothing. Basically, I'm going to say something very, very straightforward to you guys over there who hate James Gunn and want this movie to fail. And I'm going to say something very straight and honest to you people who really think James Gunn is the bestest director ever, and you really want this film to be successful. So first of all, to the people over there who want this film to fail, the reality is this may be a great Superman movie and it may make $800 to $1 billion. We don't know. That might happen. I'm sorry to rattle your illusions. Now, to you people over there, right, who really want this film to be successful, you think James Gunn is the bestest director ever, this film may be a financial disaster. And here's another thing to both groups. Sometimes a great movie is a failure. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Last Action Hero is a great example of this. Last Action Hero, from my point of view, isn't a bad movie. Why did it flop? Because Arnie was being criticised for inspiring violent behaviour by young men. So Arnie's a very responsible guy and took people looking up to him and idolising him very seriously. He announced he was going to start doing more family-friendly movies. It probably ruined his career, but it was great responsibility from Arnie. And Last Action Hero, Kindergarten Cop, which were the kind of family movies he started making, were very, very good entertaining movies, but people resented him going that direction. And I think some DC fans are going to resent a more jokier DC movie. So basically, we are where we were several weeks ago and several months ago. The reality is we don't know what this movie is truly about. We don't know how good this movie is. We've seen a solid, really good teaser that I enjoyed personally. And then we saw a horrible TV spot with horrible flying. That's how I feel about that personally. That's what made me begin to become concerned. Where am I? Am I over there where I want this film to fail? No. I'm a DC and a Superman fan. I never want anything to fail. I admit the arrogance and the bragging from Gunn and his fans, if it's successful, will be hard to take, but I don't want Gunn to fail. Not because of Gunn or his fans, because I love Superman. I want to see a great Superman film, and this could be the last Superman film I ever see. So it's not in my mentality for that to happen, right? But we'll see what happens there. And you know, on the other side of it, am I a shill who really wants this to succeed? Look, I want it to. I only want things to succeed if they're good. I've said this before, but this is nothing. This from Jeff Sneider. He's obviously scared of after being so passive aggressive against James Gunn, spilling a lot of tea on this Superman movie that may be true or false. He dialed it back and he wanted to give a positive reaction. So Jeff Sneider, as I say, clearly cannot be trusted. I don't care what he thinks of me. He's already got me blocked because he's got a very fragile ego. But I've been honest, he's a good scooper with good sources, but like all good scoopers, sometimes they're wrong and sometimes they're right. And on this channel, I've relayed things from scoopers and sometimes they've been right and sometimes they've been wrong. And some people have said, well, what about when you said this, Mick? Yes, I own my mistakes. I own when I'm wrong. You can't do this. You can't do what Jeff Sneider does. You can't do what I do on a daily basis and expect to be right 100% of the time. What you do is, I come here with my heart on my sleeve and I tell you how I feel. You can tell from the way I am that I'm a very passionate guy. I'm never going to stop raising my voice. I'm never going to stop being this animated because I'm passionate about stories, film, DC, and especially Superman. I love that character. I wouldn't be alive and kicking right now without the character of Superman and his films and, you know, shows like Smallville. Smallville was something that carried me through very, very dark times, and I certainly wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Smallville. But Superman has always saved me metaphorically. So DC and Superman especially are very, very important to me as a person. And I don't want this film to fail. However I feel about James Gunn, however I feel about his fans, however I feel about the toxicity about how the studio treated Snyder and Cavill and Amy Adams and Ray Fisher and all of them. I don't like that. I don't like what's happened to this studio. I don't like how David Zaslav has removed all the Looney Tunes cartoons from Max. It's like a spoiled child, you know, acting out because they didn't get their own way. I'm sure there's an audience on Max for Looney Tunes cartoons just because your movie was a flop. Listen, this generation doesn't want to watch Looney Tunes cartoons, right? I didn't want to watch Betty Boo cartoons when I was a teenager, right? Because they were dated, right? I didn't want to sit there watching black and white movies with my mum when I was a kid. I wanted to watch, you know, the new vibrant, technically gifted modern movies. That's the way it is. People move on. I've got Looney Tunes cartoons on physical media. I used to record them off the telly as a kid. I've got VHS recorders. I've got DVD players. I've got everything. And I've got everything in different formats. So I don't need streaming. I've unsubscribed from all streaming because modern day entertainment is an absolute propaganda place. I don't care about it anymore. It's creatively bankrupt. I'm done with it. But I do love DC and I will be going to see this Superman film. And I'm still excited for it because I genuinely don't know what it's going to be, but it's either going to be a disaster or it's either going to be successful. It's going to be from one extreme to the other. So this from Jeff Sneider is nothing. And I hope I've explained it to you in the way that you understand that Jeff Sneider he's on the fence and he's tying both lines. He overreacted to James Gunn insinuating that he's a liar and he went too far and he's just trying to dial it back. And that is all that this is, right? So and let's be clear about this, I don't mind a jokey Superman movie that balances drama, seriousness, right, and the shtick together. And if that's balanced, well, that's great. Like Superman 78 had great comedy, but it had great drama. That's fine. I enjoyed the Snyderverse, but not everything has to be serious just because I enjoyed the Snyderverse. And I know there's a lot of Snyderverse stands out there who are really authoritative about everything having to be serious and not going back to 1978. I kind of know what they mean, but I think there can be a variety of balance in tones in any movie, and especially a Superman movie, but we'll see. This has to be the best comic book movie, the best Superman adaptation ever made. And it has to make from around $750 to $1 billion. That's what it has to do. It has to be loved by the audience and critics. And if it's not, then they are in big trouble. But right now, ignore all the talk on social media, ignore the scoopers, ignore the reports and leaks from test screenings. It means absolutely nothing. Do something very old-fashioned on July the 11th. Go to the movie and judge it on its own merits. I know, so old-fashioned, right?